Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to see you again on my channel. Today, I will continue bringing you the turbulent and challenging story of the single mother, lythica, and the devoted police officer, Hung. In the previous episode, as you saw, after months of hard work, Hung achieved a remarkable success in his mission and was commended by his superiors. Thanks to this accomplishment, he was granted a rare short leave to return home and visit Hoai and their little son, Tony. For a soldier like Hung, those few days off were more precious than any gift, for every moment away from home had been filled with longing for his family. Their reunion, though brief, was overflowing with love. The family shared a cozy meal together. Hoai cooked simple yet heartfelt dishes, while Tony was overjoyed to finally be wrapped in his father's warm embrace. They strolled down the tree-lined village road, laughter echoing throughout the small neighborhood. Those simple yet priceless moments brought tears to Hoai's eyes, for she knew how rare it was to have father and son together like that. But time, as always, showed no mercy. Hung's leave lasted only 2 short days. This morning, he had to pack his bags and prepare to return to his unit, more than 130 kilometers away. The atmosphere in the small house grew heavy. Quietly, Hoai helped him fold his clothes, trying to hide her sadness, knowing he had no choice. Meanwhile, Tony clung to his father's shirt, his tiny hands refusing to let go. Just when it seemed the painful farewell was inevitable, an unexpected tragedy struck. While playing in the yard, Tony slipped and fell, hitting his head hard on the brick floor. Everything happened so quickly, his piercing cry, then dizziness, pale face, and cold sweat covering his small body. Terrified, Hoai held him tight, while Hung immediately scooped him up and rushed to the hospital in a frenzy. Inside the emergency room, under the glaring white lights and the beeping of machines, the doctor announced after a quick examination, Tony had suffered a head injury and needed to be hospitalized for special observation for several days. Head trauma was extremely dangerous and could lead to serious complications if not carefully treated. The words struck Hoai like lightning, her legs nearly gave out beneath her. Hung's face turned rigid in an instant. On one side was the sacred duty of a soldier, returning to his post on time and fulfilling his assigned mission. On the other was the most important part of his life, his young son lying motionless in a hospital bed, and the woman he loved sobbing helplessly by his side. No matter what he chose, he would have to face loss. Would Hung grit his teeth and leave, forcing Hoai to bear this crisis alone? Or would he bravely choose to stay, risking the consequences at work in order to stand beside his family during their darkest hour? The answer will be revealed in today's episode, an episode sure to grip the hearts of viewers as they witness the harrowing struggle between duty and love. Today was the last day Hung could stay by Hoai and Tony's side. Tomorrow, he would be obliged to return to his unit to continue the unfinished work awaiting him. That was why, the entire afternoon, Hung hardly left their small house. He sat with Hoai under the porch roof, gently reminding her of things to keep in mind during his absence, while carefully preparing what he could to make life easier for her and Tony. His voice was calm yet heavy with concern. He spoke of her health, Tony's studies, and daily routine, even down to trivial matters like locking the doors and checking the stove. Every word carried his love, yet beneath it lay a deep unease, for even he didn't know when he would next be able to return to them. Tony, still innocent like any child, laughed and played in the yard with the family's pets. His cheerful voice lightened the air, as though it swept away the worries weighing down the adults. From her seat, Hoai watched her husband and son in silence, her heart swelling with bittersweet emotion. She knew that by tomorrow morning, the house would once again fall into its usual quiet, filled only with the wind rustling through the bamboo and the footsteps of mother and child. But just as the atmosphere was at its warmest, an unexpected accident shattered everything. While chasing after a puppy racing across the yard, Tony stumbled on a loose brick, lost his balance, and crashed onto the hard ground. The sharp thud rang out, followed by the heart-wrenching cry of the boy. Blood streamed quickly from his head, staining his fine hair crimson. For a moment, Hoai was paralyzed. Then she rushed to cradle her son in trembling arms, her heart stopping as she felt the warm blood soaking her clothes. "Tony, my child, don't scare mommy like this," she screamed in desperation, her tear-blurred eyes fixed on her sobbing son. His cries grew weaker, his tiny body curling up against her chest, as the yard that had been filled with laughter plunged into chaos and fear. Hung leapt forward, his face drained of color, eyes blazing with urgency. He refused to let panic overtake him. Holding his son's head, he swiftly tore a strip of clean cloth and pressed it against the wound to staunch the bleeding. Still, blood seeped through, painting his calloused soldier's hands red. His voice caught in his throat, strained yet steady, as he tried to calm both himself and his wife. "It's going to be all right. I'll take him to the hospital right now. Stay calm, pack a few things, and come with me." That sight nearly broke Hoai completely. She clung to Hung's hand, sobbing and shaking, powerless to do anything else. Fear tightened around her chest, suffocating her. In that life and death moment, both Hung and Hoai realized that all plans for tomorrow, for duty, for separation, no longer mattered. Before them now was only the fragile life of Tony, the child they loved more than themselves. Hoai, trembling, tried her best to comfort Tony, calling his name over and over, gently soothing him so he would stop crying. She knew only if Tony calmed down could the first aid be more effective. Yet deep inside, waves of fear surged through her chest, tightening every breath. Her tear-blurred eyes tried to force a fragile smile as she whispered, "It's okay, my love. Mommy and Daddy are here. You'll be all right." Hung, though a soldier by nature, could not hide his unease. He hastily gathered the essentials, then carried Tony to the car and sped off, driving as fast as he could. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror to ensure Hoai wasn't panicking to the point of danger. His heart pounded violently, cold sweat dripping down his forehead, but he forced himself to remain calm, more than ever before. Throughout the urgent ride, blood from Tony's head wound kept soaking through the cloth Hung pressed against it. Suddenly, the boy's small body went limp, his eyes fluttered shut. Tony had fainted from severe blood loss. For an instant, Hoai froze in horror, then burst into sobs, her cries piercing the air as she clutched her son's frail body. "Tony! Wake up, sweetheart, please don't leave mommy." Hung's chest tightened at her words, but he refused to break down. Clenching his jaw, he forced out steady words meant to anchor her. "Stay calm. Trust me, I'll get him there in time. He'll be okay. He will be okay." After what felt like an endless road, they finally burst through the hospital gates. Hung, as if prepared for this very moment, rushed straight inside carrying Tony in his arms. Doctors quickly took the boy into the emergency room, leaving Hung and Hoai outside. The moment the doors closed, Hoai collapsed onto a chair, burying her face in her hands as tears poured down. Each sob carried the deepest fear a mother could ever feel, the fear of losing her own child. To her, the world had gone dark, as if the sky itself had fallen. Hung sat close beside her, his rough soldier's hand clasping hers, offering what warmth he could. Pulling her into his arms, his hoarse yet resolute voice whispered, "Everything will be all right. Our son will fight through this. Believe in him, believe in me, please." But for Hoai, faith felt unbearably fragile. The image of Tony's bloodied head, his cries fading into silence, kept replaying in her mind like a nightmare. That agony, only a mother could truly feel, cut into her heart like a blade, leaving her gasping for air, collapsing in Hung's embrace. After more than 2 hours, the doors of the operating room finally swung open. Stepping out was a doctor, his eyes weary yet his expression still firm and professional. Hoai nearly jumped to her feet, her trembling legs carrying her quickly toward him. Her hands instinctively clutched at his sleeve, her voice shaking, caught in her throat. "Doctor, my son, how is Tony? Is my boy all right?" At that moment, Hung, standing beside her, fell completely silent, his gaze fixed on the doctor, desperately waiting for a glimmer of hope. The doctor looked at them, then gave a reassuring nod. "Please rest assured, your son is out of danger. We've stopped the bleeding and treated the head wound. However, the impact was quite strong, and he's still in a coma. The scans show a mild traumatic brain injury, so he will need time under close observation. For now, the most important thing is to let him rest, and for the two of you to stay strong so he has something to lean on." Hearing those words, Hoai's eyes immediately filled with tears. She broke down, sobbing, this time with a mixture of pain and relief, for at least her child was no longer hanging between life and death. Her whole body went limp, as though all the strength from the past 2 agonizing hours had drained away. Hung quickly caught her trembling shoulders, gripping her hand tightly, his voice low but filled with resolve. "You heard the doctor, our son will be fine. Stay strong with me, we'll wait for him to wake up together." The doctor continued, his tone slow but decisive. "Now, the two of you need to pay the hospital fees so we can continue his care. This is a critical period, so be prepared to stay here with your son." With that, he handed them the medical file and walked briskly down the corridor, leaving Hoai still sobbing in Hung's arms. In that moment, Hung felt the crushing weight of responsibility pressing down on him. On one side, the duty of a soldier awaiting his return, on the other, the fragile little family that desperately needed him to stay. And deep in his heart, the answer was already becoming clear. Hearing the doctor's words, Hoai's legs lost all strength. Her body collapsed right at the emergency room doors, her mother's heart torn apart, each beat stabbing her with unbearable pain. Hung rushed forward, steadying her trembling shoulders and guiding her to a chair. His voice was low but firm, filled with determination. "Sit here and rest for a moment. Calm yourself. I'll go pay the hospital fee so our son can get the best care." Hoai nodded weakly, tears streaming down as her hand clutched tightly at his sleeve, as though it was the last anchor she had left. Hung drew in a deep breath and hurried toward the cashier's desk. But the moment the nurse handed him the bill, his eyes froze. The number printed there was staggering, far beyond the cash in his wallet or even his bank account. A wave of dizziness washed over him, his chest tightening as though gripped in a vice. As a soldier with modest pay, he had never imagined being cornered in such a desperate situation. His hand holding the bill trembled slightly. Thoughts tore through his mind. If I can't pay right now, will Tony's treatment be delayed? Could his life be in danger? The very idea made his blood boil and his heart race violently. Wasting no time, Hung pulled out his phone, dialing one familiar number after another. His voice was urgent, pleading, though he tried to mask the panic. "Brother, I'm at the hospital, my son's had an accident, I need money immediately to pay the fees. Can you help me?" But one by one, the answers came back: hesitation, regret, apologies. They wanted to help, but the sum was too large, too sudden. Hung's throat tightened, his hand slick with sweat as it gripped the phone. Finally, with no other choice, he called a close colleague from his unit. After only a few words, the man grasped the urgency of the situation. Without hesitation, he transferred the money at once, leaving only a hurried message. Take it, save the boy first. We'll figure out the rest later. When Hung's phone vibrated with the transfer notification, he exhaled sharply, the crushing weight on his shoulders easing just a little. He immediately returned to the counter and paid the hospital fees. Holding the receipt in his hand, he clenched his fist, his heart burning with both pain and resolve. No matter what it takes, I will protect my son. I will protect Hoai. When he returned to the waiting area, Hoai was still seated, her tear-streaked face fixed on the ICU doors with a vacant stare. Hung approached, placed the receipt on the table, then gently wrapped his arm around her shoulders, whispering like a solemn vow. It's done. Our son will be safe, we'll get through this together. The sudden tragedy left Hung completely defenseless. Tony, the beloved child he had longed for every day, now lay unconscious in a hospital bed with a serious injury. Hoai was on the verge of collapse, her frail body trembling outside the emergency room, tears flowing endlessly. Seeing them like that, Hung felt as though 100 knives were tearing into his heart. Yet before that pain could even settle, a new burden struck: money. Tony's hospital fees were overwhelming. The loans he managed to secure were only enough to cover part of it, and he knew the treatment and observation would be long and costly. His pockets were nearly empty, debts piling upon debts, weighing heavier with each passing moment. As a police officer, Hung had never felt so cornered, torn between his duty to his family and his obligation to his unit and his country. That night, sitting silently in the hospital corridor, Hung stared at the ICU where Tony lay. Pale white light spilled from the doorway, and in his mind he saw his son's weak face, each image stabbing at his chest. He remembered the moment he carried his son from the yard to the car, the blood soaking his hands, the despair in Hoai's eyes. It all replayed like an endless nightmare. Tomorrow, his leave would end, he had to return to his unit. The thought pressed heavier on his chest. If he stayed, his work could suffer, even risking discipline. But if he left, he would abandon Hoai to face everything alone: the hospital, the bills, their comatose son. How could any heart rest easy with such a choice? Burying his face in his calloused hands, Hung's soul roared in turmoil. He asked himself, what should I do? Return to my post, fulfill my duty but leave my family stranded? Or remain by Hoai and Tony's side, knowing it may cost me dearly in my career? A painful struggle, an impossible decision. Yet Hung knew, no matter what he chose, something precious would have to be sacrificed. 2 hours after the surgery, the nurses gently wheeled Tony back into the recovery room. On his young face, the pale color had eased, and his breathing had grown more steady. Though the anesthesia still lingered, keeping him from fully waking, at least his condition was now much more stable than before. Seeing her son lying there with his head wrapped in white bandages, his heartbeat faint yet steady, Hoai could no longer hold back. She burst into tears, tears of both pain and relief, streaming down her weary cheeks. Hung stood beside her, gripping her shoulder, his voice soft. You need to eat something. You've been awake since the afternoon. If you don't keep your strength, how can you stay by his side to care for him? But Hoai shook her head, her red eyes still fixed on her son's face. I won't leave him. I just want to stay here, watching him. Even if I look away for a moment, I'm afraid something will happen. Hung sighed, his chest tightening. He understood her fear, but he also worried as she was already at her limit. Moments later, Tony stirred. His tiny eyelids fluttered as the anesthesia wore off. Slowly, he opened his eyes, glanced around, then broke into sobs. His cries shattered the silence of the room. Hoai rushed forward, clutching him in her arms. It's okay, sweetheart. Mommy's here. Don't be afraid. You'll be fine, I'm right here with you. Too young to form words, the boy could only weep and cling to his mother's clothes. But the sound of her gentle voice and the warmth of her embrace gradually calmed him. Tears still glistened on his cheeks, but his breathing slowed, and soon he nestled quietly in her arms, drifting back to an exhausted sleep. Hung watched by the bedside, his gaze softening at the sight. In that moment, a simple truth filled him with peace: as long as his son lived, as long as their small family remained together, they could endure anything. Later that evening, the doctor returned to check Tony's condition. He carefully examined the monitors, asked the nurses about the recovery process, then finally turned to Hung and Hoai. At present, his health has improved significantly. However, to ensure absolute safety, he must remain in the hospital for further observation. With head trauma, complications can arise at any time, so please follow all instructions carefully. During this period, he will need medication and injections to support recovery. Hearing this, Hoai nodded repeatedly, wiping her tears as she whispered, "Thank you, doctor, thank you so much. As long as my son survives this, I'll do anything." The doctor gave a brief nod, added a few more instructions, then left. In the quiet of the hospital room, Hoai remained by Tony's bedside, her hand clasping his tiny fingers, her eyes brimming with boundless love. Hung silently drew a chair beside them, watching over the two of them, vowing in his heart, "No matter how hard it gets, I will protect you both." In the first days after the surgery, Tony's health gradually stabilized. Though still weak, his complexion regained a healthy glow, his breathing became steady, and sometimes he could even open his eyes to look at his mother, his tiny hand gently squeezing Hoai's fingers. That small sign of recovery eased her tension, softening her heart and quieting the tears that once never seemed to stop. Noticing that Hoai spent day and night by her son's bedside without eating, Hung quietly went out to buy some hot porridge and snacks. He placed the container in front of her and spoke softly. "Eat a little. You need your strength to care for him. I also got some for Tony. When he wakes, he can have a bit of thin porridge." Hoai looked at him, eyes red but nodded faintly. She knew Hung was worried for both her and their child, and deep inside, she felt a warmth. She was not alone. Yet, as Hung watched Hoai's frail figure and Tony lying weak with tubes in his arms, his heart grew more troubled. He knew there were only 2 days left before his leave ended. If he failed to return to his unit on time, he could face disciplinary action. But if he left now, how could he rest easy, leaving Hoai and Tony alone in the hospital? After long hesitation, Hung picked up the phone and called his superior. His voice was hoarse, though he tried to remain composed. "Sir, my family is in great difficulty. My son has just undergone surgery and is still weak. I respectfully request 1 or 2 more days of leave to care for him." On the other end, there was a pause, then his superior answered with sympathy. "We understand your situation. Very well, you're granted 2 more days. But Hung, remember the regulations have limits. You've already been away often since your return to the unit. This time is an exception. You must arrange things and return to duty soon." Hung bowed his head as emotions churned inside. He knew his superior had already shown him great leniency. If he asked for more, it would cross the line of discipline. Hanging up, he sat silently in the hospital corridor, his mind swirling with countless thoughts. Work, the sacred duty of a police officer, he could not abandon. Family, Hoai and Tony, the most important people in his life, he could not leave behind. This torment weighed heavy on him, his eyes staring into the distance as if searching for a way out. At last, he could only tell himself, wait 2 more days, then decide. By then, maybe Tony will be better, maybe I'll have another option. But deep inside, worry still piled upon worry, for he knew that every choice ahead would come with a price, whether for his career, or for his love and family. That night, all three, Hung, Hoai, and Tony, remained in the cold, sterile hospital room. A dim yellow light cast long shadows across the tiled floor. The noise of traffic had faded, only the steady beeping of the heart monitor and the drip of the floor echoed, blending with Tony's labored breaths. After a long day of exhaustion, both physical and emotional, Hoai finally drifted to sleep in Hung's strong arms. Tear stains still marked her cheeks, her brow slightly furrowed, as though she couldn't escape the haunting images of the accident. Hung tightened his embrace around her fragile shoulders, his heart aching. She had endured too much pain, yet still forced herself to stay strong for their son. Tony lay motionless on the bed, his tiny face damp with sweat, lips trembling in a restless sleep. Watching him, Hung felt his chest tighten painfully. He longed to hold his boy close, but feared touching the wounds that had yet to heal. All he could do was sit by, eyes fixed on each fragile breath, silently begging time to pass quickly so his son might recover. But while Hoai slept, Hung could not close his eyes. His mind was consumed by worries. Tomorrow, his leave would end, he would be expected back at his unit. If he stayed, he would break discipline. But if he left, how could he bear abandoning Hoai alone in the hospital, with Tony still fighting for his health? On top of that weighed the burden of money. The hospital fees he had borrowed only covered the beginning. In the days ahead, Tony would need long-term observation, medicines, infusions, none of it cheap. A man used to facing danger out in the world now found himself powerless against the struggles within his own family. He sat there, staring into the void. His calloused hands clenched tightly, deep lines of strain carved into his forehead. The night dragged on endlessly, and sleep never came. Hung remained awake, silently watching every small movement from Tony, so that Hoai could rest without fear. Deep inside, he made a vow: no matter what happens, I will not give up. I will carry it all, so that you and our son will never have to suffer again. And so, that night, Hung stayed awake by the hospital bed, bearing in silence the crushing weight of both worlds, the duty of a soldier, and the responsibility of a man protecting his family. So, will Tony be able to recover quickly after such a cruel fall? His head injury, so dangerously delicate, will it simply heal with time, or will it leave behind unpredictable consequences that haunt his future? Hoai, a fragile yet steadfast single mother, must now struggle to care for her son, endure the crushing weight of hospital bills, and battle moments of despair. Can she keep her faith and love alive, and stand strong beside Hung through this greatest of trials? And Hung, he now faces the most critical decision of his life. On one side is his duty, the discipline and responsibility of a police officer, demanding his return as soon as his leave ends. On the other is his family, the small, precious world of Hoai and Tony, those he cannot bear to abandon in their darkest hour. Which path will Hung choose? To leave and continue his career, or to stay and sacrifice everything for love and family? What fate awaits them, when duty, devotion, and the fragile life of little Tony all hang in the balance? Stay tuned for the next episode to discover the answers behind these heart-stopping moments.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người câu chuyện về mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca và cảnh sát Hùng. Hôm nay thì câu chuyện của mình đưa đến thì nó có một chút ly kỳ hơn một tí, khi Tony gặp phải tai nạn và Hùng đang chìm trong sự lo lắng. Câu chuyện này thì thực ra nó là câu chuyện hư cấu thôi, nên mong mọi người có thể vui vẻ suôn sẻ, chứ mình không có hề làm fake hay là làm cái gì hết á. Và mình chỉ muốn đây là mình tiếp diễn một câu chuyện thôi. Mình hy vọng rằng mọi người đọc truyện có vẻ hoan hỉ vui vẻ và cùng theo dõi diễn biến tiếp theo của câu chuyện. Và nếu như mọi người yêu quý kênh mình cũng như là yêu quý các nhân vật thì hãy để lại like ở trên video cũng như để lại bình luận để cầu nguyện cho Tony, cũng như là nếu như yêu quý kênh mình thì hãy ấn đăng ký kênh và nhớ bật chuông thông báo lên để không bỏ lỡ bất kỳ video nào mà kênh mình ra tiếp theo mọi người nhé.